A lot of people are starting to wonder if the bull market is over. Are we now going towards a bear market? Some people are even saying that we're already in a bear market, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In my opinion, the bull market is still well and on. It is still ongoing, which is why I continue to do what I've been doing now for the past couple of months, which is to dollar cost average on a daily basis. This morning, I got some really beautiful prices on XRP, on Solana, on Shiba Inu, even a little bit of Bitcoin, even though my Bitcoin stash is pretty low at the moment, as it often is in the bull market. In bear market, I usually have a higher stash of Bitcoin and dry powder. In the bull market, I often have a lot more things like, XRP, especially now that we are in the precipice of a massive offshoot when it comes to XRP. But that's besides the point. The bull market, I believe, is still on, but what we're experiencing now is a temporary recalibration of where things are. And this is often brought about by a black swan event, and it's a macro event, right? So it's not crypto specific, it's not XRP specific, for instance. It is because, the global environment, the financial environment, the macro environment is undergoing a lot of turbulence at the moment. As you probably noticed, I'm in a different place. I was on a plane yesterday, and most of the flight was smooth sailing. And all of a sudden, we entered this big gray cloud, dark gray rain cloud. And all of a sudden, it went from, smooth sailing, like even water boat, into a proper, like, bam, bam, bam. It felt like I was on a train or something. And it reminded me of what's happening now with crypto. And if you didn't understand what was happening, if you didn't see the gray cloud that we went into and you weren't anticipating it, and then you suddenly started bumping, then you might, get afraid. And this is quite analogous to what's happening now. A lot of people can't see or don't understand why things are acting the way they are. Sorry, I got interrupted by someone. Basically, what was I saying? If you didn't know what was going on, then you would panic more. And in this industry, I think knowledge is power. Just make sure that you are abreast of the bigger picture, and that informs your reaction to the smaller things, right? And you know that none of this stuff is crypto specific, none of it is XRP specific, which means you're not going to panic like the others. Now, there's a lot of panic going on. We're in near fear. And because of that, a lot of people are selling off, and the prices are great for people like me who continue to accumulate every day. So that's where we are with that. Yes, I was looking at the S&P 500 futures, and I saw that it wiped out quite a fair bit of the market, of traditional finance. And when this happens, it creates a really bad taste in the mouths of the people who are trading in the stock market. And a lot of those guys are also trading Bitcoin now, right? And they sell their Bitcoin. So the what happens with the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and all those things has an effect on tech stocks, has an effect on Bitcoin, especially now that MicroStrategy, this company, I think it's just called Strategy now, right? Did I call him MicroStrategy? Michael Saylor. His company Strategy is now traded in the stock market. And that is coupled in a way with Bitcoin. Whatever happens with that usually affects now, because of the traders, to an effect what happens with Bitcoin. And whatever happens with Bitcoin affects all the other cryptos. Today is a critical day. It's April the 3rd. I think it's Liberation Day when all the Trump tariffs kick off. I haven't actually been keeping abreast of all that information because I've been doing a little bit of traveling lately, which is why I haven't been uploading that many videos on my channel. I'm sure you probably noticed. But I had a quick look, and apparently today we're also having that closed door meeting with the SEC. I'm going to be looking more into that later, but the short gist of it from what I've seen is that the SEC is having a little sort of sit down, closed door meeting, and people are speculating that this is when they will officially announce that they're withdrawing the case from against Ripple. Now, obviously, Brad Garlinghouse already declared that over. I believe it's over. We all know that. But normally, the formalities that are involved aren't always, that smooth, right? It usually takes time for the legal processes, the documents to be signed. The lawyers actually have to sit down with the judge. The judge has to like make the settlement. You have to agree, go do this, sign this document, come back. So the actual official legal process usually takes a little bit longer than people just sitting down saying it's over. It's not as simple as a CEO or a chairman or even a president saying, "Bam, this is over." Sentiments, we know that it's over because the CEO of one of the parties has said so. Also, Ripple has dropped their part of the suit where they've countersued, so they've dropped that. So obviously there's been a settlement agreement. Also, George Soros is going to lift the injunction saying that the XRP can't be sold to third parties. That's also going to be lifted. So that's actually big news for XRP, because imagine when that is now officially lifted. I think we're going to see companies now rush to buy XRP that don't already have XRP. However they're buying it, who knows whether they're going to be buying it directly from Ripple, whether they've been earmarked in the escrow, whether or not they're going to do it OTC somehow or buy from the exchange, whatever the case may be. There's not going to be enough XRP to go around when the real frenzy begins. I know there's a lot of talk of things like private ledgers and RLUSD, There's a lot of that going around. And there are, of course, different functionalities for different parts of the technology. But when this injunction gets lifted, I believe that we're going to see finally a little bit of a reaction as XRP starts to run out on the market. The only problem, of course, is we have a negative macro environment. And unfortunately, news like this gets wasted in such an environment because everything is downturned, right? But if you look at XRP and compare it to something like Solana or Cardano, you see that XRP is actually holding up quite well compared to these other, tokens in the same range. XRP is doing pretty well, and part of it is because of the XRP army being really strong and a lot of good news coming out with XRP and around XRP. So none of this is financial advice. I'll do a proper deep dive video sometime today when I get the time, but just do your own research, and I'll see you next one. Peace.